Do I want to run my neighbor through with a helmet because he's performing as a cadet, and a whoosh through the pipes when my upstairs neighbors flush crap down the toilet?
Hey, it's the boy! Get your bags there.
Come bearing gifts.
What you got?
Well, we gotta get out of here first.
Yeah, right. Your backpack's small as hell.
I know.
That's cool.
Hello, I'm glad that you're here. Well, I turned 25 this year, and that felt like a big enough number to treat myself to something I've wanted to do for a while. Yosemite has been on my list of national parks, well, since I knew what a national park was. And so many folks have told me it's the absolute pinnacle of public land. So I convinced my friend Blake to fly all the way out from Atlanta and road trip with me from LA to the High Sierras.
You never have any what?
I never have B-roll on the screen for the car portion of it. And so I'm probably not even going to do the voiceover. I'm just going to use this as
We had finally gotten to our campsite right around midnight, so after waking up all of our neighbors by blasting some Britney, we only had the energy to set up camp, enjoy the stars for about 10 minutes, and go to bed.
Oh my God, it's 5 a.m. I do not really want to be up. Okay.
One thing I've always wanted to see since high school was Mono Lake, and for those that don't know, the inner sleeve of Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here art was taken here, and I've always thought this was one of the coolest pictures of all time. Since we were going to be passing by anyways, why not hit it up for sunrise? I loaded up with some Ektar while Blake loaded up some Kodak Gold.
You're gonna see if I actually know how to do this or not.
I mean, you've shot film before.
I know, but it doesn't mean I've done it well.
Amateur move.
What noises, dude?
Once we got loaded up, the sun began to crest over the mountains, so we immediately started heading for the tufas. I'm pretty happy with these shots. Usually my first shots of a trip are light-leaked, unlovable bastard children, but the colors on this roll had me coming home with that gallon of milk I was looking for. Obviously, none of them compare with Storm Thorgerson's work, but they ain't bad for warm-up shots. Blake also crushed out some bangers that morning, especially this one with the tufa contrasting the sunrise on the Sierras. Mono was a brilliant way to start the day, and once we were satisfied with the sunrise, we headed into Lee Vining for our final meal before wandering off into the woods.
Back first.
Sorry.
I couldn't recommend Nicely's enough. That's some tip-top food right there. But now, it's time for the title card of the video. Yosemite. And let me tell you, the drive-in did not disappoint. We came in through the eastern entrance and got to enjoy all the sights the Tuolumne Meadows had to offer. A good 30 minutes later, and we were at the ranger station to pick up our permits, where they promptly told us our original backcountry plan wasn't possible. So from here on out, it was completely improvised. Now all that was left to do was head to the trailhead and send it.
Ready to send it?
Oh yeah, I'm ready to send it. Are you?
Let's send it.
After you send her.
I was a little surprised that the backcountry trails of Yosemite looked like the beginning of a Manscaped commercial. That is to say, quite overgrown. As it was though, it was still a pretty enjoyable time hiking, and some of the burnt out areas looked pretty incredible on some digital black and white.
As an update, we have lost the trail. We're about an hour in, but We probably will find it.
Luckily, the trail finally cleared up once we got to Yosemite Creek, and I can see why Mira wrote such lovely things about this stream. We just stopped to refill our water, but ended up chilling out for an hour because it was just that pleasant. The creek was absolutely freezing, and it felt great on some tired feet.
All I need is like a little flat fishing rod.
It would be fun to have a
That
fishing.
would be so nice, dude.
I frankly didn't want to leave, but we still had a ways to go before the end of the day, so it was time to head on. I'm happy to report that the rest of the way was just plain nice. Well, except for...
Oh my god, the mosquitoes.
God damn. F***ing mosquitoes.
Yeah, the mosquitoes were atrocious in the wooded areas. The good news was the landscape changed every mile or so you'd get little breaks from them. 7 miles later, or 12 miles according to this sign, and we finally got our first glimpse of the valley, which meant we only had a short distance left until Yosemite Creek turned into Yosemite Falls.
That is gorgeous.
Want to take a dive?
There are no words to describe this place. I mean, it looks great on camera, but you don't get a scope of the grandeur until you stand on the valley rim yourself. I was thinking about the picture of Muir and Roosevelt standing on Glacier Point, and even though we were on the wrong side of the valley, we thought to give the whole self-portrait thing a whirl. I mean, you can hardly tell the difference. Just two homies climbing mountains. Anyway, we went down to explore the falls. But you couldn't actually see much of it from the viewpoint. So instead, we climbed back up to the overlook and chilled out for a few hours.
I tell you what, as far as things go, sitting in the shade with this view, it don't get much better than that.
I'm trying to get a picture of this raven.
Eventually, we knew the sun would be setting soon, so we crossed over Yosemite Creek and began heading up to Sierra Point to set up camp. You see how this line absolutely ruins this image? Yeah, the lab completely kinked the negative, which rendered a couple of frames of this roll useless. Now, that's a bummer for a lot of reasons, but I'll show you why it's devastating in just a bit. Just a couple miles more and we were finally done walking for the day. I truly do not think that you could ask for a nicer camping area. Once I had gotten my tent set up, I noticed some incredible clouds poking out over the ridge, so I mustered up the strength to climb up to the top where I was treated to this. I didn't even know Half Dome was there. There's times out in the woods where you just immediately get flooded with peace. And trust me, this was one of them. But now for the devastating part. These were the frames that the lab f***ed up. Luckily, one frame survived, and Blake was shortly behind me with his camera. But I was truly bummed to get these back. At least Blake got this image though, which might be my new favorite picture of myself ever. I think it truly captures just how enamored I was with Half Dome. The kink negatives were a bummer, but in the moment, I had just taken some bangers, and all that was left to do was sit back and enjoy the sun setting. The sunrise the next morning wasn't a colorful one, but boy was it a dramatic one.
You know, this is so cool, but like, that is such a drop.
As the morning dew was evaporating, a nice layer of mist began to settle over the trees. I really love these morning pictures. The atmospheric skies and the morning light really accented the landscape nicely. It was a beautiful cold morning, and we figured since we wouldn't be hiking very far, we'd get off to a slow start.
Wait.
After putting the fire out, we had a nice dry tortilla and peanut butter breakfast. And after reloading my camera with some Fuji C200, we began on our journey to North Dome. This hike had a much better view of the valley along the way. Every couple hundred feet or so, you could just see the broad face of Half Dome poking through the pines. And speaking of the pines, their cones were huge. We came across a recent burn area, which still had some stumps smoking. We got worried for a little bit, but then we came across a fire crew a few minutes later. I'd never walked through a still live burn before, and it was kind of interesting to see, especially how the parts that have had more time to recover had such beautiful wildflowers. The final push to the North Dome Trail was a steep one, and once we got to the crest of the hike, we popped down for yet another nice view and a quick lunch. The rest of the trail was a steep downhill, and we finally laid claim to a campsite right in the shadow of Half Dome. Now all that was left to do was set up camp and chill out, except for one tiny problem. We were out of water, and the nearest water source was right back the way we came. So Blake, being the heroic, handsome, and strong boy that he is, volunteered to hike back and fill up both of our bottles.
My boy here is going to provide for us.
Here I am, alone, no Russell, because I am venturing out to get water for both of us.
Well, it's a bit nerve-wracking because a giant thunderstorm's coming in, and you definitely aren't supposed to be on the top of a mountain for that.
Update. It is starting to drizzle. I wonder what Russell's doing right now. Probably just sitting in front of Half Dome with his feet up, just chilling. Meanwhile, the real man is out here going to get water for both of us. I have finally made it back to the river, which means Russell and I will survive.
Well, while I'm waiting for Blake, I'm finishing up the hike to North Dome. And based on this, I have a feeling it's going to be a really good view.
Excuse my heavy breathing, but it is all uphill.
There's what would be a great view of the valley if it wasn't so dark. But on the other hand, Half Dome is going to make me act up.
Well, here's the final difficult uphill for me. Right now I'm just chilling, catching my breath.
I think North Dome has the most panoramic view of all the mountains we've been to so far.
How terrible would it be if I just slipped and fell and all the water bottles broke open and then we didn't have any water?
The campsite's somewhere back there, so I'm just gonna hike back out here when it's a little less hot and thunderstormy.
Russell, you'll have to edit out all my heavy breathing.
Here he comes, Mr. America.
The Water King returns.
How was it?
Fucking exhausting.
I bet.
Blake had returned just as another storm was rolling in, so just like proper southern boys, we sat out in the rain and listened to the thunder.
You hear the thunder?
Dude, I swear.
Dude, that was like the biggest bit of lightning.
it happened again.
Yo.
It wasn't super heavy rain, but I guess we were high up enough to even start getting some hail.
How you doing?
Pretty wet and cold.
Well, I'm having a good time. Blake was understandably pretty tired, so he ended up back in his tent for the rest of the afternoon, which meant it was just a lovely rainy dinner for one. I know being out in the rain is kind of a turnoff for most people, but sitting out in the quiet and appreciating the roar of thunder echoing off of giant slabs of granite is such a pleasant departure from everyday life. Well, until it started hailing again.
Whew. Okay, now's the big one. It's time to go back into the tent. I'm a bad southerner, but it's hailing. Ow! Ouch!
So, I don't know if you can hear it, but it's hailing like crazy. You can see the hail building up. Wow.
It kept up like this for about an hour, and by that point the sun had pretty much set. We had missed our window for another half-dome sunset, so we kind of just decided to call it an early night and try for an early morning the next day.
Good morning. It is 5:30 a.m. and it's pretty cold, but not as cold as yesterday. And my current objective is to build a fire. Alright, so now I'm going to try to light it. All I have is a little bit of paper and this little flint and steel.
Once Blake had gotten the fire going, I had finally woken up and joined the party.
This man does nothing but provide.
Seriously, I get the water, I make the fires.
At least I put out. Oh, you know, a little Odie's in the morning, a little half-dome in the morning, a little homie in the morning.
A little homemade drying his bag in the morning.
A little homie drying his dirty little slutty little dirty backpack.
Since we knew it was going to start raining soon, we thought we'd just make a quick breakfast and make our way down to the valley floor. All of the rain from the night before had made the granite pretty slick, as evidenced by how gracefully I conquered this V9 boulder problem. However, that was the only real challenge of the day, and after taking in a view of North Dome one final time, we descended back into the woods before all the lightning came in.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So you're gonna keep watching the ball.
if it comes to that.
Man, did I look that dorky? Oh, now he's looking better.
The main grouping of clouds had departed by the time we got back to Sierra Point, which meant the recently refreshed valley was giving off an incredible glow. I could have sat up here for hours, but we had a bus to catch in the valley, and I didn't think hitchhiking was going to go well with two wet hikers. Now was time for the part where we descend 3,000 feet over 3 miles. It was Switchback Central. Our knees were getting destroyed, and all of the exposure from the sun was just draining our energy. The only thing keeping us afloat was just how incredible Yosemite looked. And then we finally got our first view of the actual falls part of Yosemite Falls.
I gotta admit, this downhill is kicking my ass a little bit, but that makes it worth it.
This trail was deceptively long, but eventually we had reached the valley floor, which was hell. We went from spending time in nature as intended to being on a bus crammed with people going in the opposite direction from the lodge where the hiker's bus was going to pick us up. So yeah, we missed that bus, and now our best chance was to find a Yards bus that was heading out of the Tioga Road entrance and sweet-talk the driver into dropping us off at the car. Also, they had an Ansel Adams gallery, and I wanted to go so bad, but we would have missed the Yards bus as well. We literally jumped on the bus just as it was about to take off, and shout out to the incredibly sweet driver for pulling over and letting us off at the trailhead.
It's the tone. You know he feels it.
As we drove out of the park, we pretty much had one thing on our mind after 3 days of eating trail food. Nicelies, baby.
Oh, dude, that's so good. How's it?
Now, I suppose this is where the video should end, but honestly, I hadn't had a proper adventure like this in months, and we had decided to spend the next day just exploring the Sierras. So if you're only here for Yosemite, this video's over for you. But if you like adventure and the general landscape of the Sierras, stick around. Somehow we lucked out with the only open first-come, first-served campsite in a 50-mile radius, and got settled in for a very lovely evening. We were exhausted from the day's hike, so we fired off a few shots and went straight to bed.
Another 5 a.m. morning, baby.
The morning began with another trip to Mono Lake because we loved it so much the first time. This sunrise was complemented by some storm cells off in the distance, but we also came across a very interesting character.
Is this your friend?
Yeah.
Tell your friend to move out of LA. I don't know, if you like this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
there's no place for your brains down there. And you lived in a really neat spot where two creeks came together down the street from, what's his name? He used to play with Poco, bass player.
This lovely fellow had a lot of stories for us, but he did also give us a tip that Bodie State Park was only an hour drive away. So after yet another meal at Nicely's, we began on our way there.
Goddamn.
For those that don't know, Bodie is an old town that's been pretty well preserved, meaning no graffiti and just pure Western vibes.
I mean, geez, talk about a shot stealer, am I right, people?
I really like how my shots turned out here. They're fairly basic in terms of Western frontier compositions, but I thought Ektar's color profile complemented the area nicely. Granted, Blake's Cinestill 50D was absolutely perfect for the occasion. We completely lucked out with the clouds settling over the Sierras. They left the perfect spaghetti Western texture in the sky. As awesome as Bodie was, you can only take so many pictures of abandoned buildings, and we still had a lot of driving left to do. So onward we went to Mammoth Lakes. From what I hear, Mammoth Lakes is a killer ski town, and even in the summer, it was a gorgeous area. We ended up at the Twin Lakes camping area to fire off a few shots, but didn't stick around too long as we were anxious to get to the next state park down the road before sunset. Even though it was long, the drive was incredibly nice, and we couldn't believe everything we had missed driving up in the dark. It was a bit bittersweet nearing the southern border of the Sierras. I was bummed to be returning to the urban landscape and traffic jams of LA, but that was numbed by the beauty of Red Rock Canyon. This park is incredibly underrated. It's almost like a fusion of the Badlands in South Dakota and Joshua Tree. It was a great way to cap off a great trip, and as the sun set, we knew we were right back in LA as we immediately got into standstill traffic.
It's time to say goodbye to this beautiful boy.
Well, now that's it. A lovely long weekend escape to a life-changing place. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Let us know if you had any favorite shots in the comments, and if you like these sort of film photography adventures, then I don't know, maybe like and subscribe. Anyway, I hope you have a nice day, and until next time.